This is actually a continuation of another video, so this will still show you the markers that I'm going to do and the sketching step of this. If you're curious at all about sketching in watercolor pencils and how I roughed out the beginning of these sketches, it's a previous video that is on my channel. Go check it out. Otherwise, we're going to dive right into this. Okay, the markers that I'm using are the Copic multi-liner markers. This is in sepia. I've got my 0.5 and 0.3, and we're going to start with the 0.3. As you can see, I've already got some stuff going on up here. I did these two, so we're going to work on the 3 that I showed in the last video instead. And you just go right in with the marker and start to define. The eyes are about the only thing I'm really going to color in. And this one I feel like I wanted a little more of a shape. The bunnies above this one, I just kept round. Okay, we're not going to get sucked into the eye too quickly, because I did that on the other ones too. I didn't really fill in that eye to the last bit. So right now, I'm just going through and checking where I want to define any extra lines and shapes. And I'm just giving the drawing more dimension and playing into kind of this is my sketching style. This is one of my favorite ways that I really sketch anymore if I'm not going to paint, because I do primarily paint these days. I sketch in like my notebook still sometimes, but this combines the two. It still gives me some painting by sketching with the pencils and then using water and a brush to move it around, and then I just come in with this and I block in details / add details, usually when I do an automatic drawing, which is where I just let everything free flow on the page. This is kind of a combination of something that emerged from that style, from just letting random lines happen, to also studying realism and studying a subject matter, which for this is bunnies, because I really like bunnies a lot. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I need to define in the bunny shape first. I don't think so. You notice I'm not putting in hard lines. In some areas I'm just adding in little shapes, and it's because I don't always want to block in a hard line. There aren't always hard lines. See now. Trust the watercolor. That's gonna bug me. I'm not gonna mess with it. I think it's okay like that, but that's gonna bug me until the end of time. It's a good thing I am making these as a better price point option for a vending event. So if you are gonna be in St. Louis weekend of 18th and the 19th, let me know. I will have some prints for sale. Not prints. I also do originals. Actually, I only do originals right now. I feel like prints are something I should eventually give into and do. Now what I have to decide is I'm blocking in these lines, because I am still thinking that looks a little willy-nilly perhaps, but I am actually still thinking of my composition, thinking of how it looks, and thinking of how I want the lines to reflect each other, patterns I want repeated. Examine it and see how the eye goes. You can see just at the top here how this looks kind of similar to the actual bunny's eye that is up there, and that is on purpose. It is not something that I intended at the very beginning with the original composition, but it is something that came from playing with the lines, which I always encourage you to do. Gotta remember to play. It's art. Art was never meant, well, I don't think life was meant to be taken so serious. We're gonna be real honest. You're taking life super seriously, and I get that, because I feel like I probably still do sometimes a little too much, but in case nobody told you, it's not that serious. It's okay. You can relax a little bit. It's gonna It's gonna be okay. Life is not so serious as you think it is. So play. Play around, whether you think it's a masterpiece, whether you're just doing something for fun. Well, I hope you're playing around if you're doing something for fun, otherwise it's not really for fun. Makes me think of Finding Nemo. Can't never let anything happen to him. Not much fun for little Harpo. Yeah. Well, can't never let anything not happen. I know I'm messing up that quote. You guys know the quote, right? Finding Nemo, all that. Anybody else's child currently obsessed with that? To be fair, I think she's mostly obsessed with fish. Thinks fish are cool. That also means that I feel like there's probably an aquarium somewhere in the future, but that one's actually going to wait until she's old enough to, one, ask for it, as I hold my breath, because after we got birds and a puppy, why shouldn't I? Oh, because I'm crazy. It's fine. Don't worry about it. After I did that, she, the very next morning, was standing at the table declaring that she was going to buy a cat. No. We officially have enough critters in this house for right now for both mine and Jake's sanity. So no, we're gonna let that one lie until a much later time. And same thing with the fish. So I was like, well, I can wait till she asks for it. No, she might say she gonna buy a fish here soon. And you know what? Pause on that one. But it probably would be fun to have a fish. Right? They fun to look around. It's more of a cage thing. And I'm probably like, you got birds in a cage. Why do you care about? I know. To be fair, I worry about the birds sometimes too. They actually do have free access. They can get out of their cage and stretch their wings. And they do. We play with them and socialize them. So they're actually pretty well taken care of. Don't you worry. Okay, see, so this is where I gotta decide, because I wanted to do that in the eye. So let's just, if we're gonna reflect that shape, and that's where I have to decide, because see, when you do repetitive shapes like that, you kind of box yourself into a corner, because you got to stick with it. And see, I kind of hate that. So we're actually going to make that a circle. I'm going with the thicker one, which I meant to go on with before. And we're going to fix the eye just a little bit. That is not what I wanted. Okay, so we're going to do this. And it's going to leave behind some texture, which is okay. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. But that does help dictate for me. We're going to go circle there. Circle there. Do you know what I'm doing with the circles? I'm not going to tell you, but I bet you can guess. Anybody want to take a guess at what's going on and why I placed the circles where I placed them? Anybody at all? I'll let you think about it as I do this. Okay. And I will say, so again, I'm on watercolor paper, which, fun fact, watercolor paper is all about absorbency, especially the more expensive water, heavy-duty color paper. No, those words were not in the right order, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Right, you get the meaning. So where I'm going with that is, I don't know that markers are the best thing to use on this paper. Probably using a lot of ink of my marker. But I will also say I like, the thing is I don't like using regular drawing paper because it's feels too flimsy. Okay, well then maybe I should use paint, but I want to draw like this. Is there ink I can do that with? A nib? Should I be using a quill? Anybody? Hello? Is anybody out there? I don't know. Guess I'm subscriber to the channel. For all I know, I'm talking to myself. Well, to be fair, for all I know, I'm always talking to myself. For all I know, I do know. I'm me. I'm here. This is me talking to me. But also talking to you because I'm recording it. So, somebody else figure that one out. And as you can see, so I don't want to make that as big as I was making it, so I'm just going to go back in with some lines. And for the listener, if you are not particularly enraptured by what I'm saying, that's okay. There's a magic little thing called a mute button, and you can just mute me. Because otherwise, you know what, I am just going to ramble, and I don't promise to not ramble at any point in time. Because it's nice to ramble. I got no other better reason than that, but I will take no offense if you're like, I don't feel like listening to her, I just want to watch her. Cool. Zero judgment here, man. Zero judgment. You know what, we're just gonna kind of block this in if we're doing all of it. See, and that's where I know. Oh, squeak. So that's Missy. That's the aforementioned dog that we ended up getting. She's a total sweetheart. Drives me a little crazy sometimes. More of a cat person. I'm used to cats. But I felt like a dog would be better for a toddler than a cat. I think the cat might have been annoyed the attention of the toddler. And if we're being perfectly honest, I didn't feel like dealing with the litter box right at this particular point in time. I don't really mind them. I grew up with cats. I don't think litter boxes are actually that bad. I know some people super don't want to change them. You don't mind them. There's just an extra thing to have to deal with, have to remember and keep up with. And if you have a toddler, you know that anything you can take off your plate is a good idea. Well, then why did you get the dog, Shanae? Well, because you also know anything that'll help keep your toddler busy and make the family unit happier is also a good thing. And I will say, she actually really loves the dog. I could tell she really wanted a pet, and it was the most logical thing. And we have a doggy door. So little Peppers, during the day, has pretty great access to where she needs to be. And so far, as long as we're paying attention, she's been pretty good and smart about going outside. Even when we are not all going outside together. She does pat a little bit about that. That's fair. Like I said, she wants lots of attention. I'm used to cats. Cats are like, okay, I have food. I have some toys to play with. Like, they're great at independent solo playtime. I forgot that dogs like very engaged, interactive time. That's why I know I'm more of a cat than I am a dog, because I am also a big fan of solo playtime. Like, I'm a big fan of adjacent activities. I want to be doing exactly what I want to do, but I also I want you to be doing what you want to do. And then, of course, the conflicts arise. And it's like, okay, well, what if, stay with me here. I'm going to shade in that paw because it's toward the back, and I feel like that works in this instance. I don't normally like to add too much shading to my bunnies. We're going loose and wild. It's the dang figure drawing class, I'm telling ya. But also, I don't love it, so I'm going to mess with it till I love it. It's this arm. I'm not sure about that arm. Right? That's the shoulder. That's a little elbow going on. I don't feel like we need to define it, but I'm definitely going to define the trees. And I don't think we're going to have the same eyeball thing going on over here. I could in the background. Would that be better? It's also the hard thing when you're like, I want to make, this is why people do prints. You make one thing and then you print it. And isn't that easier? I feel like it's probably easier. So I'm over here going, okay, well, I'm going to make a little price point. I'm going to do some sketches. People like the sketches. I don't think they come as well. Video-wise, they come across, I think, pretty decent. They're better in person. Just the softness of the blended out watercolors. There's a lot more depth than what I can reasonably show. I'm no good at taking pictures of it, and that genuinely drives me a little crazy because I can't get the depth that I want to get, which means I can't show you how cool it is, and it looks just too light. I run into that a lot Really ran into that when I was younger, especially with colored pencils. Ooh, we should do a video on colored pencils because I'm new to that, and that's also very exploratory. Sometimes it's boring to do what you know. It's a puzzle. I want puzzles. Art is like one of the biggest puzzles out there. So is the human body. That's why figure drawing so far is actually pretty darn fun. Because it is a puzzle. It's especially fun when you actually have a human model, a live model to draw from. That's pretty invaluable in case you don't know. So if you ever get one of your friends to help sit for something like that, one, do. Because it's incredibly worth the experience, but also know that it's tricky and the pose matters. So make sure they pick a pose they can actually hold for it. You know, I really only have to hold a pose for a minute, for being super honest. I feel like there's still, see, this is where I gotta decide. There's this big tree that's holding the rabbit, technically. So there's some texture. But how do I convey this tree, who is also holding the rabbit? Like there's some things back here. And this is what happens when you don't have a reference photo. So I drew the rabbits from some reference, but setting-wise is just free imagination, and also to keep. So I know I said in the last video you got to get away from reference photos, and kind of how you can do that is like I did, where so I started with the reference photo on the yellow, just on the yellow though. So I drew everything I needed to draw with just the yellow. See, this paw is the problem. That's why it's a problem that we went rogue. But I did the yellow, and then I did the red and all the other colors because I was videoing it. Just following what I wanted from it, just following the lines, and you can totally do that. Does that work? Is that paw back there now? Something else I'm not going to be the happiest with, but I'm going to let it go. We're going to let it go. I should fill in the eye, though. The further we get from the reference photo, the more you got to work your imagination. That's the trick with the background, because I didn't work with a reference photo for the background of it, which means that's where you rely a little more on your inherent skill and knowledge that hopefully you have built up via other things. But I need to get better at building up my mental catalog of more reference photos of landscapes and perspective and backgrounds, because for being real honest, it's my least favorite thing. Least favorite thing to study, but you can't phone in your background because it makes your work look subpar. Seriously though, don't neglect your background. You gotta do it. It's important. And yeah, that crinkle you hear, that is aforementioned dog. And again, Cash is like, they just pick a spot and they just sleep. You would potentially hear, really? You would potentially hear kitties knocking stuff over. So that's something that you would hear. And you see how I just made a shape there instead of actually filling it in? I like that. And somebody asked me with the early rabbits, what are the lines? What are the lines you got going on there? Abstraction. Abstraction from the form. Another helpful tip that I can give that most people don't want